And we are back. What an interesting week one in the NFL fantasy world. I've loved being back. I was on my phone constantly reloading, hoping something had happened. I was with actually my girlfriend in the Peak District in a hotel. So I had my phone on the red zone, stats, a fantasy below it, flicking between them both. It was laggy, so I was hoping something happened and I couldn't, and it was all going crazy. And at one point, I was panicking, but as you'll hear throughout the show, I had one saviour. And one saviour only in all my fantasy teams. I've drafted this defense, and I was buzzing. Obviously, the Cowboys' defense were awesome. So I've had a good week. I've won week one on the back of that defense alone. Bish, how did you do?
I got the W. That's all that matters in this game. But no, it was a tough battle with Matty Grimes. He messaged me Sunday before the games, giving me a bit of stick. But the boys did the job. He's a bit unlucky, to be fair. He racked up 100 points, so he was the highest scoring loser. But he just come up against the wrong opponent. So yeah, I'm happy to get off to a winning start. That and ahhing pick 4, picking Austin Eckler. I'm glad I did because he had a hell of a game.
It paid off for you, didn't it? Yeah, Eckler, a brilliant game. Happy for you, Bish. On my end, Saquon didn't really do much. Obviously, I actually had the Dallas defense, so that didn't quite logistically make sense for me, but it don't matter anyway. Dallas scored enough points for every player on my team combined. I was buzzing. Barkley, disappointment for me. Derrick Henry did okay. Devonta Smith did well. Keenan Allen didn't do as well as I hoped. And then actually, as my what's it called, the third slot, the flex position, I put James Cook in instead of Michael Thomas, instead of Romeo Doubs, instead of Jackson Smith and Jeeba, instead of Cole Kmet. I put James Cook in, and he did all right. He didn't do as well as Romeo Doubs, but I'm not sure who would have predicted that. I guess Christian Watson not playing meant he had a higher role, but I didn't expect the Packers to do as well as they did. Otherwise, it was the right call. Bish, do you want to take us through your team quick?
Yeah, so I went with the Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley stack. The Trevor Lawrence, 18 points. Calvin Ridley, as we expected, 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 20 points, which was very good. We talked about Eckler, 24 points. A bit disappointing in Kenneth Walker, but just the way the Seahawks went meant he wasn't really involved. Tyler Higbee didn't do too much. Washington, I had Jaheim Dotson, only 6.5 points. But I had enough. My defense, 49ers, 13 points. So, yeah, good enough to get the win. And my bench is looking good as well. I've got a couple of running backs scoring double points there in Mostert and Montgomery. So we've got a bit of firepower waiting in the wings.
Yeah, Montgomery. I think that was one of the shocks of the weekend. Not a massive shock, actually, because I think Dan Campbell did announce it. But Jahmyr Gibbs getting practically, I think he got 10, 15% of the work all day. Did well with what he got. But Montgomery is the red zone running back, the third down running back who's going to get them short yardage when they matter, obviously at the goal line. So yeah, good pick there, Bish. So the way we're doing this show, I thought we'll start the season off well. We're doing this in segments, and our first segment we would like to announce is the injury report. Let's get into it. Not the good news, the bad. Start off with the bad news. The big one I'll cover it first is Aaron Rodgers. When me and Bish met up pre-show and have our meetings about what we're going to talk about, one of the key things I brought up is just explaining to people who play fantasy, who are watching us, who might not know how fantasy works, how injuries are even relevant. Well, I'll take you through it in relations to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers being injured means obviously one thing your main thing is that he can't play. He's not going to play the rest of the season, so you might as well drop him from your team. There's no point using that roster spot anymore. Go drop him and pick up someone from the waiver wire who you might think that QB, who might have Anthony Richardson, for example, maybe a Baker Mayfield who impressed in week 1, who might have a chance. It also affects your wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, this is going to have a tremendously big effect on Garrett Wilson. He was expected to be one of the top wide receivers in the whole league in fantasy terms. Rodgers was going to throw to him. Bish, what did Rodgers even say? I'm sorry, was it?
Yeah, he said, sorry, kid, to Garrett Wilson. I said, we're expecting Garrett Wilson to have a phenomenal year. With Rodgers throwing him the ball, and yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It's tough. But he still jagged the touchdown, did Garrett Wilson. So I think his ceiling's probably been capped a little bit, which is a bit annoying because I've drafted him in a few leagues expecting a big year from him. So I've actually took him out for week 2. So that's a big call. But I just want to see what he does with Zach Wilson. So yeah, not a great start.
No, it's sad, and that's how it works. Obviously, Bish is give the example there for the viewers. That's how it makes a massive difference. He's actually took Garrett Wilson out in draft terms instead of being drafted in even some cases the first round, second round, latest third round in this NFL draft season. He would have been drafted third, fourth round. Wouldn't he be that sort of wide receiver? His upside isn't there anymore. Zach Wilson isn't rated highly at all as a quarterback. And then it actually also puts the running backs slightly higher, you'd say, wouldn't you, Bish? I don't know if you'd agree with that statement, but when a top quarterback gets injured, that normally means they'll run the ball more. So that means look at the Jets running backs, have a look who you think's going to go well, and get them in your team, get them higher up, and make sure they start, because they'll be getting more of the ball than they did previously under Rodgers at quarterback. Would you agree?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Especially with how good their defense is. So they're always going to be in games. So, and they've got Breece Hall there, who back off his ACL hit the ground running. Literally. He had a massive run. I think he finished well over 100 yards, pushing 150. So, he's had a good start. You've got Dalvin Cook there as well. So they're going to get a lot more work. The only probably counter on that is that now that teams are sort of banking on it being Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, they don't really have to stretch the field as much. So you might get that extra defender, in the box, so to speak, in NFL terms. Sort of teams can sort of predict the run play now rather than having to sit back and sort of defend the deep ball. But yeah, Breece Hall will get plenty of ball. The Jets defense will keep him in game. So yeah, that's a good shout. That looking for those running backs. You'll be lucky if you can pick up Breece Hall, but maybe Dalvin Cook's the go. Or if you've got a Garrett Wilson, can you trade him and pick up Breece Hall? Who knows? So yeah, it's seeing what your league is like really, and certainly Breece Hall would be one to have.
And the next one I'll cover quickly is obviously J.K. Dobbins out for the season. Tremendously sad for him. Might be, I'm hoping for another comeback. He's done it once before now. He's a tremendous player when he's on the pitch. He is massive upside on that Ravens team with loads of, obviously, a run-heavy scheme that they use there down at Baltimore. So sad for him, but that means, and one thing only, get Gus Edwards, get Justice Hill. Both could be definitely on waiver wires right now. Go check. Go have a look and go make sure, Justice Hill will be brilliant to have on there. If anything happens to Gus Edwards, he will be number one. Get him in your team and wait for, because Gus sadly also has a bit of an injury record himself. So get Justice Hill in. Gus Edwards might have been picked up by now by the time this podcast goes out, but if he hasn't, for our English viewers who might not have as educated people in your leagues, and that's no disrespect to anyone, but he might still be there, and he should be a very good fantasy pickup to get in your flex spot, and he should be a solid starter as long as he's fit and they've got an okay matchup. What do you think to that, Bish?
No, I agree with you. Especially, I know it's a small sample size, but we've only had 1 week. It looks like Lamar, particularly in this game, new offensive coordinator is running a lot less. So I think that'll increase as the season goes. But he's got some weapons now. As you said, Justice Hill came in, got 2 touchdowns, and Gus Edwards got some work as well. So yeah, it might be a case of you're not going to get big numbers from them, but if they can jag touchdowns close to the line, then like you said, they're worth thinking of, definitely rostering, and could be a flex option.
Brilliant. Base takes through your injury report.
So my first guy is Cooper Kupp. So obviously he didn't quite get injured in week 1, but we don't really know how long he's going to be out for, which is affecting him. And in some leagues, he would have got drafted pretty early as a high wide receiver. I think in our league, I think he might have dropped to the second or third round. But I actually spoke to the owner, Michael Lawrence, and he's not. It's one of those. It's up in the air. We don't know how long he's out for. He's had a niggling hamstring injury that's carried on into the season. He's gone to see a specialist. The Rams are very hush about it. They said before the season it was day to day. He's out for week 1. There's rumours he could be put on IR, which means injured reserve. So he'll miss the first 4 games. Just pup IR. So he'll miss the first 4 games. So it's a bit of a risky one. And for those that took him high, obviously it impacts your team pretty much. Puka Nakua stepped up for the Rams in his he was flooded with a lot of targets, so he could be one to pick up. I actually spent 25% of my fab budget on him in our punt league, which is a big call, as I said, because we don't know how long Kupp's out for. But I think he plays alongside Kupp. Kupp's a slot receiver. Puka played on the outside, so that's a big one there. What do you think on him, Joe? Is he worth taking the risk if you think you can nick him off a team who's desperate for a win in week 2?
Definitely, yeah. Like you said, if you did go and draft, if you did go and trade for Kupp, are you talking about Kupp here or?
Yeah, Kupp, yeah.
If you've got to assess your team as you think if it's fit. If you've looked at week 1, you've had a bad week, you've realised some of the wide receivers you've drafted might not be good enough, I'd say stay away from trying to draft Kupp. You need upside now and upside early to get yourselves in them fantasy playoffs later in the year. When I would draft Kupp, if you've got 2 wide receivers, such as an AJ Brown, such as someone into like DeAndre Hopkins, who might get some points, might not, but you'll get to the playoffs. You'll know your running backs will get you there, and you need someone near the end of that playoffs to get you over the line and get you that win in your fantasy year. Go get Cooper Kupp, because he will be available. Teams will be panicking who drafted him in them first 4 rounds. Even if he's slotted to the 4, you're missing out on some quality wide receivers. So you'll be able to pick up Cooper Kupp at quite a cheap trade price. Go get him and go wait for when he's back, because you'll have yourself a brilliant wide receiver for the fantasy playoffs. Shouldn't have used DeAndre Hopkins there. I'm sure there's much better, so I apologise about it.
You sort of wide receiver 2 sort of types. Amari Cooper, maybe someone like that. But yeah, as we know, as long as Stafford stays fit and Cooper's available, that connection is going to be working all day. So my other one I'm going to throw in, I'm going to cheat a little bit here, Joe, and I'm going to pick 2 players, but it's in one category, and that's the tight ends. So we've missed Kelsey. Kelsey missed week 1, and then the second ranked tight end, Mark Andrews, he's off the board as well. So we've gone into the first week of fantasy football, and generally these top tight ends, Kelsey definitely is drafted early. So you've Kelsey's gone, Andrews is gone. Who's the next one? Hawkinson, possibly. Who are you looking at? So those 2 off the board are huge in the tight end market. So that would have hurt teams a lot. Kelsey, we're talking, I think he's been in slight training this week, but the speak of a bone bruise for me, that seems quite serious. That in terms of more than 1 week, but we'll see. We'll see how he gets on with that. Mark Andrews, I'm not too sure on news on him. Again, it might be light training, but we'll see closer to the weekend the designations for the Friday sessions. But they're two big boys for your team, and more than likely, if you've picked up one of them, you've not really got another tight end option, as you're relying on them every week. So out there, one I've just picked up in leagues, Hunter Henry. I'm liking Hunter Henry at the minute. I think with Bill O'Brien coming in there, they've sort of changed it to two tight end sets like they used to do back in the day with Gronk and Hernandez. So he's one. I don't want to reveal too much because I might be using him in another section. but yeah, that's a big blow, the tight end market. So see week 2, see how them two bounce back.
Brilliant, yeah. That's your injury report. The next one, we've got another segment, the Punt project. We've got the waiver wire pickups. Bit late on this one. This show for viewers watching will now be filmed on Monday evenings and be put out on Tuesday, just in time for your waiver wires to go in. So we apologise about this 1 week. We're still getting some kinks sorted out, but yeah, for next week onwards. But who was your waiver wire pickups, Bish? I think you've already revealed, but talk us through them.
Yeah, I've it's new to me as well, so I'm muddling up the sections here. I'm saying too much, but yeah, Puka Nakua was a pickup for me. I spent 25% of my budget on him. My wide receivers aren't too great in this league. I've gone running back heavy, so and Deontay Johnson went down for me, so Puka Nakua will possibly come in this week, although the 49ers are a tough opposition, but he's one I'll definitely be using. And my other one was want a waiver wire pickup. I actually waited for waivers to clear and then picked him up after, just so I didn't lose my. Well, I was seeing if anyone picked him up. No one did, so I thought I'd just nick in there and save some fab. So I picked up Hunter Henry, as I've just spoke about. Again, I think the Patriots are going back to those two tight ends. Gesicki and Hunter Henry got quite a lot of work this week. Gesicki three targets, 3 catches, and I believe Hunter Henry went 6 targets, 5 catches, and a touchdown. So, and like I said, in a market where if you're not got one of the big guns, they're all roughly in and about the same. It's just picking matchups, and for me, I'm looking at Hunter Henry there, and I'm thinking, if he's getting the targets, especially in the red zone, that's the guy I want for the upside. So those are my two. Did you pick up anyone, Joe?
No, I can't. It's probably not my segment, this one, Bish, because I didn't actually pick anyone up. I'm quite happy with my team. The reason why is because, as I mentioned earlier, my bench did pretty well. I picked up Romeo Doubs just before the season and drafted him late on anyway. And he's my backup for wide receiver, and at running back, I'll probably look at picking one up, but there was none that really stood out to me as of yet that were on our waiver wire that I wanted to waste my fab on. I'm going to wait for week 2 and really target a backup running back. So I don't really have one on my team. Like I said, I've got loads of wide receivers: Michael Thomas, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jackson Smith and Jigba. My wide receiver bench is stacked. If I have any injuries, I've got no issue putting in. At running back, I do, but I'm waiting for this week, and I think hopefully a couple might drop, as it sadly is such, as we've seen already, it is an injury-ridden position in the NFL, and as more drop out, I will pick one up, maybe one of the backups of someone injured in week 2 or week 3. So I'm just saving that for one where I think it's worth it, and I didn't really see one going into week 1 because I think Gus Edwards had been picked up.
Fair enough.
The next segment, Bish, we'll start off again with the negative. We've got the fantasy flops. Take me through your first fantasy flop of week 1, Bish.
My first fantasy flop is a second-year wide receiver at the Falcons, and that's Drake London. I suppose he's a wide receiver too. You'd probably say in most teams coming off the board, but he's very talented. But just that offense, as we know, it's very run heavy. Very good running team last year, and they strengthened that this year with Bijan Robinson in the draft. But for me, the thing is, he only had one target 1 target, 0 catches. So that's a worrying time for me. I don't own any Drake London. So yeah, it's a tough one. I'm not even sure you can trade him, to be honest. If other people are looking at that, I'm not. I don't know what would you do with him, Joe?
You've got to keep him, haven't you? I think if you've decided to draft Drake London at this point after week 1, you don't have much options because you're not dropping him. You drafted him too high just to easily be dropped. But in terms of trades, what could he go for? Because you're not gonna. Let's take my bench, for example. I've got Romeo Dubs, who played outstanding. You've got Jackson Smith, who didn't get as much, but you saw the potential. I'm not trading for London. I'm happy. So I think it would take someone very desperate, maybe a Cooper Cup owner, maybe you'd take the risk for the upside. I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't think there'll be many moves. And I think owners of Drake London might be panicking right about now.
Yeah, it's going to take someone taking a very big punt on him, isn't it? But
yeah, we've got my fantasy flop for this week. A bit of a different story would be T. Higgins. He did receive 7 targets, didn't catch one though. So I guess it depends how much you're reading into the 0 catch week for him. But Joe Burrow did look for him. I think it was. I'm hoping it was just a bad week for the Bengals all over. The vibes weren't there. They weren't all connecting right throughout the whole team. But still worrying, would you say, Bish? How much are you reading into the T. Higgins no catcher?
Yeah, I think the interesting one for me is Joe Burrow. Just looking at his movement, I don't think he's fit. He picked up that calf strain in preseason, and they've clearly rushed him back. His movement just doesn't look right to me. I know it was first game of the season. They've not had much reps. Obviously, he got injured. The weather wasn't great. Cleveland are a very good defense, but he just doesn't look right. So I think that had an effect. But yeah, I think again, I think he's too good to have another week like this. I think the Bengals are too good themselves. So, but it's another tough week against the Ravens. So we'll see how that one goes. But I think that has to be down as a blip. If I'm a Higgins fan, I'm keeping him. He's obviously a wide receiver 2 in that team, but on any other team, on most other teams, he'd be the clear wide receiver 1. So I think sometimes you just got to take your medicine, haven't you? That's fantasy football. Sometimes it just don't quite go your way.
Yeah, completely agree. Like I said, a bit different to Drake London because that story it tells a bit different where they were targeting. Joe Burrow is obviously, like you said, clearly isn't fully fit. So you can expect, don't panic too hard. Don't drop him. Don't try trade him. It's a different story. Go keep T. Higgins in your lineup. Don't panic too much. One bad week does not define a fantasy season. But my second flop of the week was Dallas Goedert, and this is one in the Drake London category that I was slightly concerned with. Obviously, the tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, he received 1 target, and I know tight end position doesn't receive many targets. A very touchdown-dependent position, unless you're Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, for example. You do need your touchdowns at tight end because there's not enough receiving numbers there, but 1 target. Jalen Hurts looked at him once, gone, yeah, he's open 1 time. And with the other, he is a receiving tight end in terms of some tight ends do more blocking, George Kittle type, some are Travis Kelce, where they don't, Darren Waller, they don't block, they just run, they just look for touchdowns. And Goedert is in the realm of that running wide receiver type tight end, and I'm worried. I'm really worried. His average draft position, his ADP, was 68th in the draft. In our draft, I think he went 62nd. So that's quite high draft capital for someone to receive, again, 1 target. So Bish, don't know if you're as worried about him as I am, but Dallas Goedert is on red alert, and I would be looking to maybe pick someone up on the waiver wire if you have Dallas Goedert to maybe a Hunter Henry, maybe your choice of getting someone in as backup in case this persists throughout week 2 and week 3.
Yeah, it's a fair comment. I quite like Goddard last year's usage. You know, he was in a few of my best bets, but like you're saying, I think it was a game of two halves here. The Eagles run up a score, and then all of a sudden the second half, the Patriots find the way and bring themselves back in the game. So yeah, I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. Maybe it's have a look at week 2. Which is the Thursday night game at the Vikings, and see if we can see any patterns. I do expect the Eagles, they've got a tougher schedule this year, so I do expect them to have to do a little bit more, so which means they might have to throw it a bit more. I think last year they sort of coasted in games. They got in front and took the foot off some weeks, but I think they're going to be tested more this week. So, yeah, I don't think I'm as worried as you are, but yeah, it's not a bad idea to maybe have a look and see what's out there on just as a security. Just pick someone up and sit them in on the bench.
Yeah.
Going with my last one, another wide receiver, and maybe not quite a flop. This one, it might not be quite on him, but I'm going with DeAndre Hopkins. To be fair, you're looking at his stats. He had 13 targets. 7 receptions for 65 yards. So you wouldn't really call that a flop. But I just think the Titans, Tannehill, they're forcing him the ball. Tannehill was picked off 3 times looking for him. He was thrown into double, triple coverage. And, you know, a player DeAndre Hopkins caliber, you know, you can sort of understand that. But just the way he's being used, maybe it was that week. He was up against Marshawn Lattimore. And I'd never really felt Marshawn Lattimore was afraid of the deep ball. He wasn't afraid of Hopkins running past him, and he was just sitting on that short ball. And every time Tannehill threw it, Lattimore was it was like a hawk just on that ball. So yeah, maybe a harsh one, but I just think he's not being used correctly. If anything, I'd put DeAndre Hopkins in the slot, let him work over the middle of the field, and you know, Treylon Burks, who they picked up last year, I think he was a out wide guy, and they've moved him inside. I'd just swap it. I just don't think DeAndre Hopkins has got the legs, or not enough people are scared of him at the minute that Tannehill can find him over on that long ball. So yeah, it's. I actually roster him, so that's why I've had a look at him. I'm not going to do anything with him. I'm just going to keep him. The other thing, sorry to add, is injuries with Hopkins. He's popped up on the injury report this week with a lower leg injury, so that's another thing to look at. But I think this one's more on Tannehill than Hopkins, but I think it's due to Hopkins because of his name and who he is and what they've paid for him, that they're going to try and force feed him the ball, which doesn't work for me in certain situations, and it didn't last week 1.
Yeah, I'd say the only counter you've got to that really is obviously using the worst words, force feed, aren't you? Which means even if he's not that good, even if Tannehill's not that good, you might still it's not the ceiling, it's the floor in this case. I think luckily the floor's probably still there. I think what you're saying is the ceiling is not going to be anywhere near what we hoped play of DeAndre Hopkins' quality and name would normally provide. I think he will still get the catches, but you were hoping for high upside touchdowns. Obviously, he's been one of the best wide receivers in the league for quite a few years now, and that might not be the case anymore.
Yeah, you've nailed it there. So in a PPR league, a points per reception league, he's going to get you points. Yeah, I just don't think those touchdowns are going to be there for him.
Yeah. Right. With Bish, we've actually got your segment. You've got a personalised segment in this weekly show. We've got breakouts, the top players of the week. Bish, lead the way.
Number 1, I think it's got to be the man, Tua Tagovailoa. An unbelievable performance, 466 passing yards. You know, and I feel a bit harsh on Tua. He gets a bad rep, I think. Obviously, he came into the league with a hip injury, sort of got the tag of being an injury-prone player. Ryan Fitzpatrick was in at the time. and he was in and out of the team. The swaps between Fitzpatrick and Tua forced on him a playbook that wasn't his in terms of being made for Fitzpatrick. And then he gets the 3 concussions, which, some might say the way he plays, but for me personally, that's on the medical staff that he shouldn't have been allowed to play that second week, so close to the first concussion. So I'm glad, he got a bit of stick in the off season. He's bulked up a little bit. He looks a bit thicker, which is obviously to help with the contact in that pocket. And all the talk is, they're a Super Bowl potential team on paper. It's just the quarterback. Can the quarterback be healthy? Which is a fair call given the history, but I think they just take away from his play. I think is a very good quarterback, and the system that they've got there with Mike McDaniel, the coach, you just have to get the ball in the receiver's hands. Waddle, Tyreek Hill, just give them the ball and let them do the rest. And against the Chargers secondary, J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, these are good players, and they're just absolutely killing them. So Tua's up there for me. I think he was releasing the ball, I think I read 2.5 seconds in the pocket. So that just shows the work of the wide receivers. Boom, straight out. There's not enough chance there for the pass rush to get to you. The Chargers rush from the outside a lot with Bosa, Mack. So maybe some interior teams who rush through the middle might affect him a little bit more. But no, for me, Tua's a great standout there, and he's well deserving of my top player of the week there. Joe, are you anything to add on that?
Not onto it, but I was just about to compliment your punditry there. Basically, one of the most in depth. You do your stuff there more than I watch a lot of shows on TV, and I don't think they've covered Tua like you've just done there. So yeah, I'm all in on Tua Bish. You've solved me, and I'm not going to add anything because you did such a good job. One of my players I wrote down was Tyreek Hill on the back of Tua. It just links together. 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was an absolute freak on the pitch. Every highlight, every play, it was just mind-blowing. No one could get near him. No one could guard him. He's improved. He said a lot in his post in his off-season how much he's concentrating on his route running, which normally, obviously, he just relies on his speed, and he says it. And now he's concentrating on practicing moves, bit of deception, changing his angles, hitting different lines, different angles on his runs, and just learning more about the art of running a wide receiver route. And it's obviously paid off. He just looks unstoppable. So fair play, Tyreek, and fair play to Tua Tagovailoa.
Looking like a good team, Miami.
Yeah, takes through your second.
My second, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and because it's my section, I'm allowed to. So I'm going to put my home hat on, and I'm going to go with the Rams. Just a team performance. I think I didn't expect it, if I'm honest. They were a 5.5 point underdog, and they've gone into Seattle there and just put on an absolute show. I think time of possession, they had the ball for 39 minutes. Out of a 60-minute game. So that's, I was massively impressed with Kyron Williams coming in as a second running back. 2 touchdowns for himself. We spoke about Puka Nacua, just feeding him non-stop, and two Atwell as well had a great game. So yeah, just all round the Rams, really great performance, very impressive. There was a little moment in there where in the second half, DK Metcalf just had a little. He got an early touchdown. He had a little bit of a frustration and took a late hit on a defender. The play had sort of run dead, and he checked him. So, and the Rams have actually got 20 rookies on the squad, which is a hell of a lot of young players. So sometimes young players, you could lose your head in a moment like that. So I just think it's a good group. They're well coached, and it's. I'm taking my hat off to him for week 1. A great performance.
No, I like it. Bit of favouritism there, but nothing wrong with that. Basically, they're your team, and they deserved it. I'm going to give a Punt favourite shout out as well. A Joe Me the Money favourite on my bets. I think he landed me 50% of my winning bets last year. Tyler Algier. Bijan coming in, they thought he was going to just completely dominate the running back room in Atlanta. I think a lot of people, I'll even say, forgot about Tyler Algier being an option. They forgot how good he looked in parts last year. And he's gone and got himself 2 touchdowns, 22.9 points in fantasy on ESPN and Sleeper. And yeah, so happy for him. Happy he's shown the world it's not all Bijan Robinson. He might be a good player, but so am I. And he's got himself 2 touchdowns and a brilliant role in that Atlanta running team.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
We've got. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we can't.
No, no.
But we've got the funniest one. Sorry, Bish, that is my fault. Bit rude of me. I'm just excited about this the last one. Don't laugh at us for our genius thoughts and our genius thing, but we've got the punters, the best kicker of the week, a waiver wire, or one that most kickers might be on the waiver wire week to week, or one that you can even chuck in a try getting a trade by swapping others and chucking them in. Bish, give us your best kicker for going into week 2.
My best kicker, and I like this section because kickers in fantasy have no love at all. I'm in some leagues where we've just got rid of kickers. Just they're not relevant. So I love this section. My best kicker of the week, I'm going to go with Dustin Hopkins of the Cleveland Browns. He played in awful conditions, and I believe he nailed the longest field goal of the week, 43 yards. He kicked 3 out of 3 field goals. So yeah, Dustin Hopkins is my week 1 kicker of the week.
Brilliant. I've got a kicker looking into week 2, and I've actually gone with Riley Patterson of the Detroit Lions. They are against the Seattle Seahawks, who struggled last week on defense. I think it'll be such a high-scoring game. Detroit's offense, we all know how good it was. They did decently against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have such a good team, and I think he'll be getting a lot of extra points and a couple of field goals in there, because I don't think Detroit struggle. They might struggle to get a couple of touchdowns, but they won't struggle moving the ball with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is the short wide receiver who gets it short and gets the short yardage plays, but we all know how good he is in the slot, and he's they'll move the sticks. Even if they don't get the touchdown, he'll be hitting field goals, and he's on the waiver wire, and that's the reason I picked him up. Riley Patterson, go pick him up in your waiver wire for week 2 and for season onwards. Bish, I think the only thing we can finish on now, Bish, and I'm going to chuck this one at you, is your week 2. What's your week 2 looking like? What's your team looking like? And are you confident about winning?
Let's have a look. Week 2 is a big week because I'm up against Sam, the fan we've in the punt. So he got off to a bad start. I believe he's a Hull KR fan. Scott Taylor put him in his place week 1. So I'm looking to do the same week 2. I'm just looking at my team now. Let's have a look. Let's look at my matchup. So he's actually predicted to beat me by 4 points on here. Interesting. I think my biggest question mark is Austin Eckler at the minute. I think he's got an ankle injury. I'm 80% sure he'll be okay. I think it's just a little ankle tweak. I'm expecting Josh Jacobs to have a big week this week against the Buffalo Bills. I think they struggle against the run, and he can have a big day there. I've got as I said, we've got the Jaguars stack in Ridley and Lawrence, and I'm expecting some points in against Kansas City. So that could be a big one. And just backing up, we spoke about Baker Mayfield on your best bets. I stayed away from Buccaneers players just to have a look, but I've actually traded for Chris Godwin. I did a trade with Isaac. J.K. Dobbins went down for him. He needed a running back. Deontay Johnson went down for me. I needed a wide receiver. So we've gone Raheem Mostert for Chris Godwin. And Chris Godwin goes straight in for me there. So I'm happy about that one. And that's it, really. I've got the 49ers defense against the Rams. The Rams got me that win last week. I'm not expecting anything this week. So that'll be interesting. But But I'm confident. He's predicted to do a little bit better than me. He's got Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle there as his wide receivers, and Tua as his quarterback. So I'm hoping that New England defense can just slow them down a little bit this week. But yeah, it's if I can go 2-0, I'll be very happy. But it's I'm trying to close that gap on you because you've got a big points lead with that Cowboys defense score from week 1.
Yeah, and I'm looking good for week 2 again, Bish. I'm flying. I've got I won week 1, like I said, fairly comfortably after the Cowboys' amazing go at defense. I've got my big choice, and I think he deserves to be put in. And I didn't play him for week 1. I regret it because I would have got even more points. But I've got Geno Smith currently as my starting QB. But it's time, and it is time for the man and the man only.
He had a good game.
Purdy. I put Brock Purdy as my starting quarterback, so that's my big move. I've not done any trade or even waiver wire pickups. I'm pretty happy with my draft. So Purdy's in over Geno Smith, but I'm actually going to ask the viewers for some advice here. My flex position, I've shown off about it a few times during this show, but I've got quite a few options. I've got James Cook, Michael Thomas, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson if he comes back healthy, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Honestly, in my view, any of them could be played. Any of them I can think of an argument, but I need help who to put in on my flex position for week 2. Bish, who would you give me advice? And don't say
I'm gonna lean Michael Thomas, I think.
Yeah,
I liked what he did last week. I like Derek Carr, steady quarterback. I think I'm going to lean Michael Thomas. James Cook is a nice option, but I'm just worried about touchdowns. Him getting them stolen off him, so it just limits him a little bit. And then you've got Packers wide receivers. You've got both of them there, aren't you, Watson and Doubs? So you've got some tough decisions, but I think I'd lean Michael Thomas.
Right, I think that's your confidence is pushing me towards Thomas. I had James Cook in there, but like you said, Thomas is guaranteed a couple of receptions. He's that good, and he's the number 2. James Cook could be the number. I
think we'll get the volume with Cook. It's just that upside of touchdowns. I'm not sure. Big Las Vegas Raiders, they played well last week. It's an interesting matchup.
I think it might have to be Michael Thomas because Romeo. I'm going to let Doubs and Watson sit on my bench and figure out because Doubs has made an argument to maybe be the wide receiver 1 in first week. I know that's a very reactionary comment, but if he carries on how he did in that first week, he might take over Watson, or they might just go shot for shot and be fairly equal wide receiver 2s essentially, and both have some ball, but not neither one of them really kick on. So I'm going to let that one play out, and I think I'm going to put Michael Thomas on my in my flex position and just see where James Cook is in terms of his red zone touchdown opportunities.
Good choices to have, eh?
Yeah, I'm in a good position. I'm feeling good. I might win a league after years of playing fantasy football, and it will be recorded live on this draft. So I'm in the big tag. I'm coming for you. I've got no injuries yet, so I'm still flying. But Bish, good. Thanks for this. Thanks for today, Bish. I had a good laugh with you. I think we're flying on the show. I felt good. But good luck on week 2. Finish us off.
Yeah, you too. Just out there for the fans watching, please like, subscribe. Any comments, any fantasy tips, get them in. I think as we get going, we might throw in a live show there discussing selections as well. So we're looking for feedback and getting involved in the fantasy community. So let's communicate.
Yeah, I'm gonna put our links to. We've now got a TikTok. Obviously, YouTube Shorts are on this, so TikTok, Instagram, and we're creating Twitter page this week. So I'm going to put all the links in the description of this video. Please, again, like, follow, share. Show us to your mates. We've cut down the time of the video to make it a little bit more palatable. We're going to put the times in there for you, and hopefully we'll be flying for week 2, week 3 onwards. But again, good luck, Bish, and up the punt.
Yep. Good luck for all those in week 2.